If you want to make soup, you're going to need two things to make just about any recipe. The first thing is mirepoix. The second thing is stock or broth. Today we're going to make both. This is a series called Kitchenista Cooking Class, where we're really breaking down home cooking, meal prep. We're slowing it down. You can cook along with me, or you can just watch and enjoy and learn. So let's first talk about my setup. I have a wood cutting board. You can use any cutting board you want. And whenever I use a cutting board at home, I always put a damp towel or paper towel underneath it. This is a really great culinary tip. If I didn't do that, this is not a skid-free cutting board, just a regular old cutting board. I would be cutting, and with any pressure, my cutting board would slip and slide, and I would accidentally cut myself, inevitably. By putting this damp towel underneath, I immediately get a suction to my work surface. I have stitched up a lot of fingers in urgent care, people who are cooking at home and they just slice their finger. I have a very sharp knife that I'm using today. This is my new shun from my husband. So I do not want to cut myself. I am not the secret ingredient, as I always say. So I want to keep my fingers intact and my food without little remnants of my body. So the other part of my setup that's really important is I have my food processing bowl. So once I get my veggies for the mirepoix to bigger chunks, I'm gonna put it in the food processor just to make the job a little bit easier and get a really uniform cut on all my veg. And then I have two other bowls. One is going to be for all of the peels. So I'll be peeling my carrots, peeling my onions. I'll put my peels in here. I will then use it for my stock or my broth. The second bowl is going to be for things that I can't use in stock or broth, like these stems of carrots. Instead, I'll put that out to my compost pile or the backyard chickens. And this is something that my mom taught me a really long time ago. She was trained at the CIA. She learned this trick. It was also part of my certified culinary medicine training. It's an important tool to be able to prevent food waste and repurpose what you have in the kitchen. You can save money, and of course you can stretch your food a really long way. So first up for mirepoix, what we'll make first, we have equal parts celery, carrots, and onion. So we'll start by prepping that. I'll cut off the ends, and the ends go into my compost pile, okay? And then we'll peel the carrots as well. You could leave your carrots unpeeled if you want to. I just am in the habit of, they're rolling all over the place. I'm in the habit of peeling carrots. So we'll get those into my bowl. And then the peels are great for stock or broth. The difference between stock and broth is made with either only veggies or veggies and then the flesh of meat. So think chicken breast or any other meat flesh. Stock is a bit thicker, it's a bit richer, it's made with bones. So bone broth is kind of a misnomer because it really is bone stock because you're using bones to cook for a really long time, but that's the difference. You can use anything, honestly. If you have stock, you could always water it down to get a thinner consistency. We today are just gonna make a veggie broth. I'm not adding any meat. It's just gonna be a veggie broth that's universal. I'll pop it in my freezer and then I'll pull it out and use it when I'm making soup during the week. By doing this ahead of time, it really cuts down on some time because I'm gonna do all the sauteing, all the flavor development ahead of time, and I could just defrost it, make soup, and really it's kind of like a little trick, and it makes me feel and it tastes like I have been cooking for a really, really long time. But in fact, I have not. All right, so we'll get the rest of these carrots peeled. All right, and now my celery. These are just celery hearts that I got at the grocery store. You can tell they're getting a little brown on the edges. I will just cut off the brown parts and put it into the compost pile. The bigger chunks get ready to be food processed. If you think restaurants or grocery stores for their pre-cut platters are not using veggies that have a little brown on them, you are mistaken, my friend. Restaurants and stores are doing this all the time. You do not need to throw out food just because it's a little brown or bruised. Okay, and now the onions. So I'm gonna show you how I cut my onions. There's a little bit of some nuance here with the onions. So the onion, this outermost skin, this kind of papery skin, This is not great for stock because it's a little bitter. So this is going to go into my compost pile. However, that layer right on the inside that I'll peel back before I dice my onion, that is great for stock. So the way I like to dice my onions, if you've been following me for a long time, you kind of know this method already. You chop off just the end, not the stem, just this end. Then right down the middle through the stem, okay? That stem is going to act basically like glue to hold all the layers of the onion together. Then this is the skin. This is going to be great for my stock. You peel back the skin. So this paper, that can go with my compost. But this layer of skin right here, this is great. Just like the outermost layer that you would have already thrown away anyways, right? And you and sharp knife, hand flat on top. Again, stem still intact. Hand flat on top. You're going to go into your onion, into your onion, into your onion. I could also just throw this onion into the food processor, and I will, but I do want to show you how to dice an onion in case you don't have a food processor. And then you're going to go down without disrupting that stem. That's basically the glue and your handle. So now you'll curl your fingers over, hold on to that stem, and just dice the onion. Perfect dices every single time. It is a fallacy that sharp knives are how people get hurt in the kitchen. If you're not using your knife properly, yes, but if you have a nice sharp knife and you're using it with proper technique, you're going to be safer than using a dull knife. Think about it. If you have a dull knife and you cannot get through your item, you're really struggling, you're pushing hard, it's going to roll away from you. You're going to cut yourself. So a sharp knife can actually be helpful. It'll be easier, right, to do the job. And in fact, overall, it is a safer way to go about meal prepping at home. So now this skin into my stock bowl, the stem into the compost, and we'll continue onward. So now in small batches, I'm going to get all of these veggies diced with the food processor. So now into my stock pot, I'll add a little avocado or olive oil. I'm using avocado oil. I just refilled my Rallis bottle. Avocado oil has a higher smoke point than olive oil. So I can actually raise this up to higher temperatures without the fear of it burning and tasting bitter. So I really like to use it to saute or high heat roast. So I'll turn this on to medium-low heat. And I have all the veggies that I food processed. It would have taken me a really long time to do this by hand. So I'm going to let this heat up for a minute or so and then add all the veggies into this stock pot. So my mom would do this in smaller batches to get a lot more color. You know, if you overcrowd the pan, you're going to steam versus really saute and get some color development and flavor development. I'm going to add it all in at one time. I'll mix it regularly to get all of the veg exposed to heat, but I'm okay if I just cook it slowly and it steams and develops flavor that way. I'm totally fine with that. But if you want a more of a caramelized taste or a little bit deeper of a flavor, you could do this in small batches as well. Or use a bigger stock pot with a larger cooking surface. Totally up to you. So I think this is, do I hear a sizzle yet? Not quite yet. I do want a good sizzle on this. Oh, it's starting. So I'll add all of my veggies into the stock pot. You hear that sizzle? Are you hearing it? All right, the lid goes on, and I do want the steam to escape, so I'll make sure that this is facing my spout just to allow some steam to escape. So really what I'm doing is drying out those veggies, allowing for them to reduce a bit and cook a little bit more to develop that flavor. You do have the option now to season your mirepoix, salt, pepper, other spices. Typically when I bulk cook mirepoix, I leave it seasonless. This way, when I use it down the line, maybe I'm adding an ingredient that's a little bit more salty, I have complete control over my seasoning profile. So I leave it seasonless and then I salt when I go to use it. We'll let this saute on low-medium heat until it's done, until my veggies are soft, they have color, and I feel like I've cooked them enough time and developed that flavor. Let's move on to our stock. My mirepoix is sauteing behind me. Now it's time to make my broth. I'm making broth because I'm only using veggie scraps, but of course I could add mushrooms, bay leaves, chicken, carcasses from leftover from Thanksgiving. I actually have mine in my freezer right now. You know what? I might pull it out and put it in here. Really, with broth, you can get creative. You can add whatever you have. It's going to just all intensify and really deepen that flavor and create layers. So what I have are some of the ends of my celery, the peels from my carrots, and the skin from my onion from the mirepoix that we just made. And sometimes if you're not ready to make broth, once you chop your veggies, you could put this in a reusable bag or container. Keep a stock container in your freezer. So that way when you are ready, just pull everything out and pop it in. I cooked with Chef Jason Brown, J Dish, yesterday. We had leftover tops of our leeks, some potato skins. I'm gonna add that in here as well. I think I actually have some pomegranate seeds in here too. Why not? Just add it in. Who cares, right? It doesn't matter at all. So when I make stock, just like my mirepoix, I could salt it, I could pepper it, I could season it. I typically do not because I want to make sure that I'm seasoning when I go and use it. And I add the spices that I want with whatever dish I'm using this for. Once I've added all the veggies I want to add, I'm going to cover everything with filtered water. Now, I could do this in a stock pot. I could take out my mirepoix and use that same pot, so I'm only dirtying one thing. I'm gonna put it in my crock pot because honestly, I'm gonna get ready to make dinner soon. I'm gonna leave the kitchen and go make some laundry. I wanna be able to kind of set this and forget it, and I can make it go for a little bit longer. Like I'm gonna actually have this go for a couple hours, low and slow in the crock pot. If you're adding bones and you wanna do bone broth, let it go overnight, right? That's the beauty of having a crock pot, kind of a controlled situation here. Once my stock has gone for as long as I want it to, again, this is going to be dependent on what you like, I'll strain out all of the veggie solids. That will also go into my compost pile, and I'll store this either in mason jars if I want to do some canning and sealing, or I can freeze it in ice cube trays and pull it out whenever I need it. Once your mirepoix is done, your veggies are soft, and the flavor has developed to where you want it, you're going to put it into ice cube trays and freeze it. Then you can take the ice cubes and put them into a container or reusable baggie. Whenever you need this mirepoix, just take out a few cubes. Not only can you use this for soup, you can use it for rice pilaf, stir fry, add it to meatloaf, hamburgers. Really, sky is the limit with this. For more information on this recipe, check out the caption below and make sure you're following along for more videos just like this one.